The year is 1959. You're sat on your grandmother's living room floor watching reruns of I Love Lucy on the television. Flipping channels, you stumble across a bizarre sequence of events. A floating eyeball, a spinning clock. This for some reason. You're traveling to another dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A journey into a wondrous world of imagination that from this day forward will forever be known as the Twilight Zone.
Jordan Peele, what is going on? This guy has his breakout hit, comedian sketch comedy guy making a horror suspense thriller with Get Out. Everyone loves it. It's a great movie. It's got great comedy, but it's still super creepy. Suddenly Jordan Peele's the biggest name in horror. And naturally when that happens, every Joe Schmo making a horror movie asks him to be an executive producer so they can slap his name right on the trailer and make you go like, oh, he's the guy who did Get Out. This will be probably good too. Fast forward to the Twilight Zone 2019. I want to talk about what makes Twilight Zone so timeless. To me, it boils down to 3 rules. Number 1 is that it's short and sweet. You got 22-minute episodes, establish a character, the guy walks into the Twilight Zone, weird stuff, and then twist ending, a lesson is learned, something like that. You know, simple. You're in and you're out. Then you got number 2. It's accessible and subtle. You know, it's creepy, but little Joey down the road can still watch it and grandma can still watch it. The show is able to be enjoyed no matter what your age, and it does this without being bloody, gory, profane, anything like that. When was the last time you watched something considered horror that could be PG, you know? Everybody asks me, oh, have you seen The Black Mirror? Have you seen American Horror Story? You love it, it's like The Twilight Zone. Not really. Just because it's a horror anthology doesn't mean it's The Twilight Zone. Watch the first episode of Black Mirror and tell me if that's like The Twilight Zone. I don't know. Anyway, third ingredient, unhappy twist endings. I mean, if the show's famous for anything, it's that, right? Flips the story around, makes you think about whatever it was. A guy does a bad thing, he gets tortured. That's it. No happy ending. Imagine it's the 60s. You're watching the Andy Griffith show and then all of a sudden a guy gets tortured for the rest of his life by a creepy doll, and that's just how it ends. That's what I'm talking about when I'm saying it's ahead of its time. But they couldn't capture the magic the second or third time, so we're on the 4th time now. And CBS All Access was free for a month, so we're binging this because I'm not paying for it, so... Wait, is that an hour? Why is it an hour? It's an hour? No.
I'm a funny guy.
He's a funny guy.
I'm a funny guy.
So this comedy guy, he's not funny. And his friends all tell him to be funny. And he goes like, no, I want to talk about gun control. And that's like his bit. And it's bad, so they tell him, hey, why don't you try something else? And he's like, no.
Hey, could you put that all in an email and send it to the ocean?
Yeah, sure. Hey, could you suck my...
Okay, so 2 out of 3 rules are broken already. It's really long, which it might deserve that length when we're done with it, who knows. But yeah, this show is full TV MA. Characters are cursing out the wazoo. It's, let's move on. We literally just started. So he's granted some sage advice from a mysterious Tracy Morgan. Basically, he's got to be more personal, so he goes up on stage and he jokes about his dog. And then he comes home and his dog's gone. Like, removed from existence. No one's ever heard of him. So that's kind of a cool premise. A comedian, I guess, kills with his jokes, literally.
I really killed tonight.
Well, the next 20 minutes is basically him catching up to the audience, learning about what exactly this power is.
Because he didn't smash into it. Because he doesn't exist.
See, this is annoying. They keep doing this thing where they explain to us what just happened after it happened, like we didn't figure it out 20 minutes ago. Yes, this is 23 minutes into the show. Nothing has really changed, but the character has finally figured out what we figured out, like, in the first act. You see, this is the point of a show where a normal episode would have ended. Anyway, the girlfriend is a lawyer, and she's got a mentor And he hates the mentor, he's jealous of him, so he kills him on stage with his jokes. And then she's like, oh, okay, I gotta get to my job at the diner. And the audience is like, oh, because she doesn't have a mentor anymore, she's not a lawyer, and she's not successful. And then Samir is like,
David Candles. She doesn't have a career without fucking David Candle.
thank you. So then he gets real mad and he just straight up kills 3 dudes who are annoying him. His friend gives him a nice pep talk and then kisses him on the mouth, and well, then Tracy Morgan again shows up to tell him to keep killing people because it's okay, because you're not really killing people, you're just deleting them from existence or something, so it's fine because they don't exist anymore. That makes it okay. So he goes back on stage and kills his friend. Then he goes full Joker rampage and just like kills everyone he's ever known. He just starts shooting off names. He names his dentist and everybody's just dying. But then his girlfriend comes back and she says, you selfish. So he does the only thing he can do to fix it. He says his own name. And then everyone he named comes back. And his friend meets up with Tracy Morgan. And the cycle repeats. Well, Samir gets painted into the wall with, I'm assuming, all the other people who shared his same fate. And it's actually kind of cool because the very first shot of the episode was this wall. So it's kind of like a cool bookend thing, and it's reminiscent of The Shining as well. So you got some points. That's pretty cool. And can I just say, Jordan Peele kind of kills it as the narrator. I like it. He's actually great. So you know what? I got a lot of problems with this episode, but I like the ending. You know, in terms of the Twilight Zone formula I was talking about, it does get the third one right. And if you're going to get any of these right, it should be that. So, you know, let's see what's next. Okay, so they decided to remake one of the most classic episodes, Nightmare at 20,000 feet. But this time, 10,000 extra feet. And about 12 extra minutes, so let's get into it. Oh, look, it's Samir from the last episode. That's fun. Anyway, you know the original story. A guy goes on an airplane and gets scared of a big ugly monster, but turns out he was insane. Or was he? This time, the enemy is a podcast. It's a conspiracy theory podcast that describes the exact situation this man is in. The flight number, the time, the names, and it says, once the pilot says goodnight New York, that's when the plane goes down. So your first thought would be to, make somebody else listen to the podcast, but luckily they write that off immediately.
Do you think you could listen to this real quick?
Those are on your ears, bro.
Yeah, but...
I don't want to get lice.
No,
But he eventually makes a friend who believes him, and they concoct this ridiculous plan, since he was a former pilot, to knock out the current pilot, take over, trigger the oxygen mask to fall so everyone gets high and passes out, and this guy can land the plane safely. Foolproof. Except turns out, the friend was insane the whole time.
he's the pilot.
Let me see what spring.
Yeah, it's kind of stupid. But the real twist is everyone survived. He wakes up at a beach next to a cute plush version of the gremlin from the original, and the podcast says, the good news is that everyone survived except Justin. And then he sees all the people from the plane, and they look at him and go, there he is! This is all his fault! And then they beat the crap out of him when the camera zooms out and it ends. They kill him in cold blood. They all just survived the plane crash and unanimously decide to murder a man who was proven to be mentally ill earlier in the episode. And apparently they live on to be a legend in this conspiracy podcast. Which, by the way, it said that the plane disappeared earlier and, it really implied everybody died, so to just say that everyone lived kind of doesn't even make it a mystery podcast because everyone in the world would know about it, right? Also, if Justin was the only one who didn't survive, then that means every one of these people was on board with this murder. And when they were discovered, they all agreed to keep this secret forever. They just beat the crap out of him, man. They kill him. What a stupid ending. Next one. So it opens in a diner, and the mom is recording her son talking about going to college. And he gets ketchup on his shirt, so she rewinds the tape, and then boom, real life rewinds. So they're driving, and a cop pulls him over because he's racist, and they accidentally rewind again. But he's still racist, so they rewind again. This goes on for some time. I'm not joking. This is basically the episode. They keep running into this racist cop, and they keep having to rewind because he, like, arrests them or something like that. She kind of resorts to whatever she can. She even decides to go back to the beginning and have, like, a heart-to-heart with him directly. So he shoots her son. But this episode has an interesting premise, you know. It's Groundhog Day, but except this time you have full control over the loop. You just can't escape this one aspect of society. No matter what they do, that cop always manages to show up and mess with them. It's like a metaphor for racism in real life, which is very depressing. I mean, they do eventually win against the cop by standing together and all that, but then we jump 10 years in the future, and the camera's broken, so the son leaves to get ice cream, and the last thing we hear is some sirens. So, ooh boy, he didn't actually escape. You can never escape because racism lives on. This episode was kind of interesting. It was heavy-handed for sure, but it has an interesting message. You know, political commentary works well in the Twilight Zone when it's done right. I thought this was done pretty well. It didn't need to be an hour, but what are you gonna do about that?
Last name or first name.
It's Christmas in Alaska. Every year, the captain of this police force chooses to pardon one inmate. Too bad no one was locked in this year except this guy. He's an aggro traveler, which is like an extreme tourist, but clearly he's like an alien or something because he's super weird, and naturally no one believes our main character who thinks he might be weird. And yes, his name is literally A Traveler. So A Traveler starts revealing things about everyone there that he shouldn't know, and that's when the captain starts to care. Apparently he's in cahoots with some Russians or something. I don't know. There's a Russian plot line that's like a B plot. It doesn't matter. But actually, A Traveler is here for Yuka, our main character, so she can join him in taking over Alaska once and for all. But she refuses.
No.
But then he was an alien all along! Yeah, this checks out. I'm not gonna pretend like half of the old episodes didn't go with this twist. Aliens was a popular subject, so they did a lot of aliens. I'm not gonna fault this show for doing alien twists. But this episode reminded me most of all of Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up? Except slower, longer, more boring. And we're not even halfway yet, so let's continue. This is about a guy working for a presidential candidate with no political experience who gets his popularity through his tell-it-like-it-is attitude and his unrealistic promises. But that would never happen in real life, because this candidate is a 12-year-old boy.
Should run that kid's campaign. Tells it like it is.
That's crazy.
Considering all the crap coming out of Washington, vote for that kid in a heartbeat.
Me too. I like what he's saying.
He wants to make this country stronger.
I mean, he wants to bring us back to basics, back to what made this nation great.
Let's hit it. We the people all across the nation. It's about time for a
How did we get here? How did we get here? So naturally, this kid completely flubs the big debate, and everyone shrugs him off until his dog comes down with a case of the old incurable dog cancer. Incurable dog cancer. So they use this as a sob story to connect with the people, and he's president. Boom. But then, he realized you can't just give away free video games because that's not possible. But he demands it because he's a grumpy little kid. Kinda like our president, haha. Get it? Aren't we smart? Aren't we writers smart? So what are they gonna do? They gotta find a way to satisfy him. They gotta give away all the DLC for Euro Truck Simulator? That's impossible! So now our main character starts having second thoughts about this whole thing, but everyone says, oh, treason. Yo, treason? Are you thinking treason right now? And then, well...
There! Hole in one! I win!
That's not the way it works.
Do you support me, or are you treasonous?
I'm not treasonous, Oliver.
Good. So it was a hole in one, right?
So, he goes into surgery, but the doctor is a kid now too. So he just stabs him, and then it ends.
Society is a fragile ecosystem.
Yeah, this one was awful. I hated this one. Let's move on.
Let's hit it. Self-evident, Oliver for president. He's the one we need to be the White House president.
Well, Oliver's not one of these greasy pond hucksters. We got plenty of those.
There's something inspirational about starting off with someone fresh. You know, someone that believes in the things that I believe in.
Young enough to old enough to go.